Good evening. It's Eric Previn by recording on Wednesday, December 5th at 6 p.m. We are here for the Gov't Affairs Committee meeting, and I will do the roll call. Eric Previn, here. Barry Johnson?
Here.
Marcia Newman?
Here.
Rick Rosner?
Here.
Jeff Carter?
Here.
Okay, those are the people present. The others include Lisa Karagian and Victoria Shulam, both of whom are excused, and Patrick Lewis, who is also excused. And I will make a comment before we go on, because Patrick is excused. We did speak, Patrick and I, at the Luminaria, and he suggested that I become, for now, the bylaws chair. So he said he was appointing me to be the bylaws chair for this period, and I said, okay, I would accept that and put together a small group for what might come up later in our meeting on Gov't Affairs, because I think we had some ideas about referring something to bylaws. So let's move forward now with the agenda as it is. So I made a typo by putting in the October, because we already approved the October minutes at the November meeting, so I guess we'll just do nothing on that for now, and what we'll do is we'll approve the November minutes when it's properly agendized, which I will do on the next Gov't Affairs Committee meeting. Do you understand what I mean? Because our November meeting, they are recorded and posted, but I just didn't get a chance to do that. So, update from the committee chair. Well, I guess that was sort of my update, was that Patrick has asked about the bylaws thing, and I've agreed. Now, we have public comments on non-agenda items within the committee's jurisdiction. I will note that Peter Cole is a member of the public, and he's here. I don't know if he wants to give a public comment.
I'm on the spot.
He's on the spot. No, you don't have to. Okay. Feel free to chime in as needed when you're ready if you want to say anything. Okay. So, my response to your polite decline is thank you. Okay, so item number 6 is the 10-5 board composition analysis. What this means, for those who are still grappling with it, is that we currently have this system, which I'm pointing to the chart of different ways that you can be on the Studio City Neighborhood Council. And it occurred to many of us at the last election, and this is why it's on our Gov't Affairs, we're wondering about upcoming done elections and future done elections. Is there a way to simplify so that there aren't so many represented seats, and that in fact we still get a good mix of people from our community who have a chance to be on this council, which is, I think, quasi-legislative. We all agree we have no power, we have $42,000 a year in budget, but we work together and we have a little structure that I think works. We're trying to improve it. So one way to do it is to reduce all of these many categories of candidate to two basic kinds. You have the people who are registered to vote here, like most of us who live in Studio City, because if you live or rent, own or rent, you have to, and it saves all the weird behavior about having to bring in your property taxes and your this and your that. So that's one category. The other category, in simple terms, is not so simple, the stakeholders, and that can include a number of people who participate in Studio City in our community, and they can define it more or less as they want to. We will accept almost anything that makes a credible case. Certainly an employee, or somebody who goes to school here, or somebody who works here, or somebody who buys their coffee here. I don't think that there's any reason to make it hard to prove that you're a stakeholder. We have our CBO, Community Benefit Organization list, that Barry and I were looking at a couple of weeks ago or months ago, which is thorough, and if we want to add a few to it or change a few, that's fine. This is not the 5 seats for which we're trying to limit participation. Guy on hat by freeway qualifies if he wants to be in this particular, if he can get the votes, because you have to get people to vote for you. So that's my proposal in a nutshell. I think it's time to open it up to other people to attack it if they want, or to offer support or thoughts about how we could refer this. Basically, the whole idea is to refer it to the Bylaws Committee, where we'll have another chance to poke at it and make sure that it can fit into our system. And then if it does, we can stick it in front of the board. And if we can do that and they like it, then we have made a much simpler process. And I'll just say one thing about the final point. And Richard Welsh pointed it out in his short document. He said, Eric, I think you may be a little bit in love with the idea of being able to vote simply by going in and voting on the ballot. But you can do that without changing all these categories, he said. You can leave the renter 3 seats, owner 4 seats, employee 2 seats, community guy 2 seats. You can leave all that and just walk in and pick your favorite from every pile. And I said that would make me happier, but I still
pick your ballot.
Yeah, you can vote for because what I really am attracted
any category
to.
You want.
But I think that it really is clean to have 2 categories. The people on the right live here. The people on the left. Hey, it's Nancy Kremer.
Sorry, I'm late.
But the people who
Kramer or Kremer?
Kramer.
Yeah. Great, nice to see you.
The people that live here are also stakeholders. So a homeowner could also run in the stakeholder category.
Correct. And just to bring Nancy into the loop, I'll give it. It's no problem. We just began a few minutes ago. And we're talking about the 10-5 concept, and I think you know about it because we talked about it and kind of devised some of it. So it's 10 registered voters, 5 stakeholders. Barry was just pointing out the interesting detail that you could certainly be a homeowner and still run for a stakeholder seat,
Absolutely.
which is true. And I will just point out a fact now, which is that on our current board, the board as it sits at the other room, is all residents. Every single one. I could not get anybody to admit that they were not a resident, so that just happens to be now. I know there have been times when there were people on the board who were not, right? But just for the record. But this is inclusive of people who are not residents because we have 5 glorious seats. So you made that point, Barry. I think we're coming back into opening it up for people to pick at it or offer ideas or whatever they want. So I'll shut up. Yes, Barry.
I see what you say. Send proposal to the city clerk for feedback. That's
Ballsy.
No, I think that's the action that should be taken tonight because as far as sending something to the Bylaws Committee, you are the Bylaws Committee, so you already know what it is. So I think you should do what you said there, sending the proposal to the city clerk for feedback and see what you get back. And then whatever you get back, you can then continue in the new Bylaws Committee.
Mm-hmm. Why not do both? Because I will point out that one of the reasons to forward it to bylaws is because that is a requirement for anything that we do regarding bylaws. And I feel not out of place discussing it here because I am a citywide guy who likes to think about schemes for citywide use. And I'm actually, as you probably know, that is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about this would work great for our community. We are a community. This would fit, and it would fit in other communities as well. Because it's some of the principles, so that's what I like about it. But I think you're right that the clerk is the where it has to land,
and there's no.
But it can go to her at any point.
Significant time deadline right now because they're not going to approve anything before an election anyway. So essentially, this would be for an election theoretically 2 years from May. They are not going to make any changes before our election.
And this would be a change to the Studio City Neighborhood Council?
Yeah, it's just ours.
We would be adjusting the way we vote.
Okay, and this would have to go to the City of Los Angeles clerk?
Well, the reason why I put the clerk in there, I'm glad you brought it up. Barry is correct that at the moment, for full disclosure, at the moment there is something called a moratorium on making adjustments to your bylaws. But I've inquired, and they have said, oh no, Eric, you are more than welcome to make and ratify any kind of changes you want to your bylaws. It's just that we at City Hall have the lock and key on kind of like the actual, you may not be able to really change them before the election. But my strategy is to change them and then put them on their table, and they'll see a nice, simple, changed, approved thing, and they'll look at our craziness over here and they'll say, okay, or maybe not. Yes, Mr. Rosner.
Is the moratorium because like hinky cities like City of Industry play games with their governments?
I think that the moratorium probably exists for the same reason that we're scratching to get up to the top. It's because I think it has occurred to people that if you make your bylaws really complicated and difficult, it's a great way to keep your seat. I can't speak. I'm not suggesting that these bylaws were put together with that in mind, but I'm suggesting that it's gotten they've been Frankensteined a little bit.
No
that
kidding.
It's a little nuts now. It's like you can feel people, and at times there were great importance to why people were clinging to certain represented seats. But now I think we've got a system. We want to open up the floodgates to people, so we have to give them something accessible, which is, do you live here? You're on to the left. You don't live here? Go to the right. I'm sure we can find something for you. That's 15. Anybody?
I'm a perfect candidate for this category because I live in 91607,
Right.
but my whole life is 91604, and I have a
But
business address.
07 is part of Studio.
my-
Of it is part of Studio
But my
City.
address is Valley Village. I do nothing
Do you
in
live
Valley.
north of the 101?
I live like just north.
Okay, so you don't live in
Yeah,
Studio
but
City.
my
yeah.
whole life is in 91604, including my business address. Okay? As I wrote to you, I feel this is very undemocratic and caste-oriented, CASTE, and elitist, especially in a housing crisis in which home ownership in this community is $500 to $1,200 a square foot. Okay? And more buildings that are being built in Studio City are apartments. Okay? I think there should be just a few categories: residential stakeholder, commercial stakeholder, youth member, I guess. And I don't know why you have community-based organization. I mean, I guess have them. But they're part of a commercial, non-commercial or NGOs stakeholder.
Commercial would be employees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think anyone,
They used to do a list
a what?
way back. They did a list.
Of groups. We still have the
groups.
list. We still have the list. Yeah, we still
For
have
community organizations, yeah.
But Marcia, just to be
Yeah.
clear, because you made the point about the cost of living here, and you're right. But democracy in America, if no throwing food, and I know that doesn't exist. But let's pretend for a minute. The idea is that you live where you vote, because Bel Air. If you live in Bel Air, you vote in Bel Air. If you can, and we're being extremely accommodating. So you say it's elitist. I say it's the opposite. I say it's incredibly liberal to invite 5 stakeholders who I basically said you could be the guy on the corner, and that would be good enough for us. So I'm trying to be really inclusive. So whereas I do agree that it's expensive, it's possible, and the rent is. You can't make an argument that they're those renters, so it's not that expensive. The rent is more than the house the owners pay these days in Studio City. So it's true, but you could have 10 renters if they won all those seats.
What?
Okay.
So
Let's go.
this one's elitist.
You're next. Let Nancy her question, get her question clear. Yeah. So, but I don't want to take away your approach that by calling it elitist. I understand that. I just make the counter argument.
That's an opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, all right. That's just an opinion.
Cool.
It's not.
No, and I'm glad
I'm not
to hear it.
stating
Right.
constitutional law or anything. 'Cause I don't know.
Not yet. But
Good.
the night is young. Go ahead, Mr.
You're saying, I don't see where the word elitist applies to any of this. What's elitist about it?
I think when you
She's
What is-
looking at it. What are you looking at?
Are you looking
Because
at
maybe
something
you're
different
she's
than I
looking
am?
The
Yeah.
old.
She's looking at the old voting roster, the way the different seats.
This
You're
one.
looking at the cleaned up
Proposed.
version, right?
Oh, I don't see I don't know what the.
Okay,
proposed
look,
one is.
can I see?
let's
This
give her
is
the-
what we're doing now, right? We have all these different groups.
This is our current
Right.
lineup,
Okay.
which gives people a headache at the door.
Okay, it does.
Who
Mr.
votes
Rosner.
Is there a big meeting in the big room where people vote?
You mean when we vote?
Yeah.
Good question. So Studio City Neighborhood Council elections, and Barry will correct me if I'm wrong, traditionally are bricks and mortar only. We tried technical or online, and it went very badly last year. I don't want to upset anybody, so I won't talk about it. But when we do bricks and mortar, it's at Walter Reed or maybe Beaman one year, but mostly Walter Reed.
mostly.
And people show up, believe it or not, because they're hand out. You during the period of time once you've registered as a candidate, you can hand out a flyer and go, I'm a funny candidate, want to vote for me? People go, for what? I don't want to talk. And then when you explain how it works, they go, you're crazy. But if you said you just have to pick me and her, they'd say, I'll try.
So you go out and you cheerlead for yourself, and then you get people to show up at Walter
That's
Reed.
right.
There it is.
This is the current, and this is the way it's been
That's what it's been more or less
ever
for years.
since
Although
the
it's been
beginning.
potchkied with, but that's it.
So I still say, I don't even see what's elitist about that. I mean,
The
there's
sectioning of categories. I
what,
think there should be
what
two,
is elitist about it, though?
where you separate homeowners, owners from renters, and then the W-2s that people have to show, and the 1099s.
Yeah, I'm
Why
trying to
is that
eliminate all
elitist?
that. Yeah.
Because I think it eliminates people. It eliminates
How does it
potential candidates.
eliminate people?
Because it starts to narrowly define their qualifications.
But if you live here, you either rent or you own. I don't know of another possibility.
But there should be a distinction between the two.
Right, exactly.
It's just
there
residential.
should, because the people that represent homeowners
fine.
and
Combine
renters have
those.
different interests.
Exactly.
Fine.
Yeah.
Residential.
But the word elitist, I
Then
don't
you
see
use another word. That's fine. I don't care.
Okay, we're good. She
Capricious,
stipulated. She folded on elitist. Let's move
capricious.
forward.
And
Okay, that's
Good.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's better, maybe.
elitist is
It's too many
over-
divisions.
But I want to
overused.
hear what I
Okay.
thought I heard over here.
Word.
So,
Yeah.
but because we had it that there were only renter seats and only owner seats, I am, just for the record, proposing that we let that go, because to have 5 and 5 is like, what if you have more? I mean, now we're all, not, I don't want to say all are owners, that's not true, but we all are registered, we all live here. And it
You don't
seems
even have
like,
to be
it
registered.
just seems like I'm not afraid of the open, I mean, I think renters have an argument, I have an argument that if you're a renter, you could have easier access to the people in your building than if you're a resident who lives up, alone on the street. Although, I don't know, the point is that it's simple. And that's what I really like about it. The registered voter thing, it's like you don't have to show your passport, you don't have to show, if you really
Exactly.
register where it's so easy. And that would save the clerk so much trouble.
I
Not that
said
that's my
years
goal.
ago that what we could do, and this is as close to it as I've seen,
Good.
have no categories.
Exactly.
That's even better.
No categories.
That's even better.
And somebody said, that's elitist. And I said, what?
Really?
Yeah, it was about 8 years ago.
My
Maybe
God.
that's why he has a problem.
Because they thought,
Yeah, I can see.
I mean,
Wow.
No, but
everything's
here's the
elitist.
problem with that. Let me
So
make
here,
the case again.
so this comes as close to that idea as I've seen.
Well, this
where
is like the
you
Thomas Jefferson over here, so this means a lot.
It is where you
frame
although I did never support slavery.
No.
But it's essentially the only separated ones are the sort of profit-based ones. The rest are simply people that are residents.
Well, you got the
And-
second part right, but I would just defend other kinds of stakeholders. They're not all about profit per se, but they are
Basically
anybody else who's not a resident. That's the way to
Because
define
they
it.
could be an employee who's not necessarily.
they're related
lots.
to money. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And somebody
Well,
might say that that's
you go to
elitist.
school in Studio City, are you
Give them
related to
some-
money?
So here.
If you
Thank
go
you
to
so much.
school, are
Thanks.
you related to money? I don't know. I mean, I see the point that it's
But
true.
I
It's
think
like
this is-
commerce, and if you're right, the way these things are set up is
Just
true.
the less categories seems to me the better.
Excellent.
I would
Nancy.
love for you to discuss, I don't have a horse in the game, but the one thing that makes sense to me is the relevancy of the reason that you have an owner, whether it's an owner of a property or an owner of a business but an owner, their stake is less flight driven, right? They've got a long-term investment in the community as opposed to a short-term investment. So yeah, I'd love a discussion on that thought.
That could be maybe termed elitist,
Yeah,
but
agreed.
certainly I'm only joking. But it just seems to me the less categories, the simpler, the better. What about the guy under the freeway? Where does he land up?
He's in the
this?
5 because he's on a. I mean, you
He
can't.
lives here.
He
Actually,
doesn't.
he can vote. He can
Oh well,
vote.
wait. If he
Exactly.
votes here, technically
vote
he
at
could
that
be in the.
address
Then,
under
yeah, I mean, that's why
Okay.
I'm not going to make that judgment. If he can show that he's a registered voter, he's in. I don't want to judge people. If
Good.
they live in
Fine.
the boundaries, that's a
I'm
clean
with
one.
you.
But then the other one, which you were saying, or someone was saying, Peter, you wanted to say something?
Well, so these are in order to run and vote?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so with that, where the point is about having ownership in it is, as I've seen in the past, it's possible to be coerced by your employer to go vote or possibly even run for a position if you're, to manipulate the game.
Right.
You're saying having money in those are money.
but that's true
That's
in every
politics.
category.
Well, it's not so much as a homeowner. I mean, I'm not going to have someone coerce me to run.
I have people who vote for me. I'm that kind of homeowner.
Okay.
I have a whole team that goes out and votes when I tell them to. So you're right.
And I
Power
want
corrupts.
them, right?
Power corrupts voting. But I mean, the idea that we faced this, did we not? Richard Weintraub, the owner of
I have
Sportsman's.
videos.
Yeah, I mean, they sent over employees in a little shuttle to
Really?
vote against us.
Didn't
And-
Harvard Westlake too?
I don't think they did, but they should have. They
years
should have.
ago, didn't,
I wouldn't be sitting here if they had.
Benny do the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
so there's gonna be schemes like that.
Political activity that comes with the territory.
A little
And-
bit.
And you shouldn't be frightened of it.
I'm
You
not
have
frightened
to-
of
I know you're not. But it's
Peter's
just the way it is, I mean,
So all I'm saying is
Yeah.
that instead of 10-5, maybe 12-3.
okay, now we're down to the,
No, I'd keep it 10-5.
how do we
Yeah.
count?
Because, I'm thinking about myself too. Where
Right.
would I fit in?
You want to have 5 chances, not 1.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
But I'm
exactly.
going to
Okay.
vote twice for Marshall. So it's different.
Yeah, well, voting twice is
I'm
All
a
three
very,
ones.
very capable candidate to be on the Studio
Yeah.
City Neighborhood Council, but where would I fit in? I'm not. the
You're a
only person.
stakeholder, for sure.
I am definitely a stakeholder.
You've been on the committee. You live and work here. You live right
You
outside
work
the
here.
boundary. Your daughter lives here.
Yeah,
You're
here
in
all the time.
See, this is the beauty of it. It's inclusive.
Right,
Now you have
it
a
is.
shot. You don't have to go. Oh crap! Do I need my W-2? I don't want
You
to show my
could run in
W-2.
at large.
That's
Rick,
right.
Employee.
you could run
Right.
As a
Your own
resident,
business.
Oh,
as a
so
business owner?
guy in
Yeah,
that.
but I
if you
have.
a hat.
I'm a
I'm
technology
happy to
owner.
accept you
but
in
my-
either
my
category.
Business.
Doesn't yeah.
It's a
yeah.
business.
My address is
Okay,
here.
one
Right.
conversation.
Mailbox
So
is
in
here.
defense-
Post
Hold on, hold
office
on,
here.
Mark, because we're recording.
Do you charge for your
Just one
services?
second, Jeff.
Well, of course.
Well,
Yeah.
of course, then it's
but
a business.
it's not local. It's technology.
But it's based here. It's physically here, so you'd
Yes.
qualify.
PO box
Okay.
is here.
Mr. Cole.
So in defense of what you've proposed, to me, it's an ethical question down the road of who ends up getting elected and whether or not they're doing what they're supposed to do. I can't try and close the door to because it may be the dishwasher and this and that. We need a method to vet after the fact if they're doing their job or not. So if that makes sense.
You mean the candidates?
The candidates, so let's say they get elected, the dishwasher, this guy who's actually being coerced, we will see by his voting, and that really you have to have community involvement and all that to vet all that.
So you're just logically playing out what would happen if he got
we
there.
can't
Yeah.
close the door, like Marcia's saying, we can't necessarily close the door to try and prevent
If that happens, he won't be reelected.
or he'll be voted
Okay.
out.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
believe we do have a
That's what I just
provision,
said.
which I faced at one point, which I don't think was taken seriously in that.
Or he'll be removed.
Yeah,
Right.
For
But
some-
there is, if someone is a no-show for a long period of time, there are ways to
Impeach
ask them
them.
to politely,
Yeah.
step away. So,
They're automatically removed.
And this,
yeah, I think it's automatic.
Now,
in this.
can I ask you one thing,
Yeah.
which is, so, I don't know why it's such a big controversy in the United States. In Pennsylvania and New York, we had voter registration cards when I was a little boy.
Yep.
And nobody got bent out of shape about it. You'd go in and you'd show them your card. They'd look you up. They'd say, yep, there you are. That's you. Boom, vote.
Yeah.
So how does this guy, how do I prove I'm a registered voter?
Well, good question. So there's two transactions. Transaction A is when you're signing up to be a candidate. Okay, so that's where you have to
But I
say.
mean when I'm voting.
Okay, well, when you're voting, we'll get to that. That's transaction B. But transaction A, just so we get it out, it's my understanding that you give them your name and address, and they look it up, and they see, you have to fill out some ballot information about who you are, and they can check, and they see that you are registered to vote within the boundaries of Studio City, and then you get a big check mark next to your name, and you're in.
They're going to look up each person in line.
No.
No. That was
This
part
is
one.
the candidates.
That was part one.
No, I don't. The candidates are.
Well, he's doing it. in two
you can
hands.
count on
He's doing it in
Right.
2 hands.
4 hands,
So,
but
let me
the
ask-
voters I'm
Right.
talking
Does
about.
anybody have a
voters.
problem with that?
With what?
What he just said, that process.
Well, that's what I love about it. That the clerk is
I
an
mean-
expert at checking.
Right.
Yeah. So that part, I think people.
I
are
have no
on board
problem
Yeah.
with that.
Now, Barry, it makes the good point. But now, what about on the day?
Right.
Right. And so on the day at traditional voting, county voting, you go and they check your name just like that. But it's divided up in CD2.
They
might
already have a list
Yeah, and they already have
of
a
your
list.
But
pre-voting
they don't
place.
ask you for any proof that you are Eric Previn.
Right.
Right. And what we have agreed in the past in Studio City is, are we not affirmation at the day where you just say who you are and show basic ideas
And request the ballots you want.
So that's how we would do it. I mean, I don't know. You might say, well, this person is saying that they're a registered voter, but they're not. We could ask people to bring their last.
But you don't have to be a registered voter to
No,
vote
you
in our
don't.
election.
That's what I like about it. When you show up to vote, you figured out that we're voting at 3 today is almost good enough because people come to Studio City. And you're right that someone could get elected by saying, social media storm, come to Studio City and pull the lever for Rosner today. And they all show up and pull the lever for and he gets elected. I mean, if that happens, has something gone wrong? Or is that's the nature of today and Studio City?
Well, how do they know that you're within the boundary then?
Well, no,
It's affirmation.
It's affirmation.
Which means what?
You're
you say it.
basically
You're assigning and saying, "Here's my."
Saying
name.
it
Under the
and they-
penalties of perjury?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we
Does it
try
say
to-
that?
We can stick in.
I would put that in.
Yeah. I think
Because-
it might have, but I don't
know,
recall.
but I would suggest
Yeah.
because then you can go to the city attorney and
Sure.
wake him up and see if
Yeah, did
Okay.
Rosner? You had a thought, then
I
Peter.
withdraw.
Sure, you withdraw.
I was going to ask if the council really had sufficient power for people to try to mess with its constituency.
Right.
But apparently, like with the Harvard Westlake overpass thing, I guess
Yeah,
it does.
it can. Believe it or not, it can. And I don't want to diminish our engagement around here, but for the record, in Koreatown, they had a neighborhood council election, and somebody stopped me, but they had, like 15,000 voters or something like that. It
a
was
lot of people over there.
A lot of people over there, but
Big
a lot of
buildings,
voters over
big
there.
They had a big
We have a lot of people
controversy.
too. We don't have a lot of voters.
Yeah.
So they had a big Well, they're organized for voting in that
they are.
particular
What was the
community.
controversy?
So my point
They weren't
about
organized to get enough to get a council seat last redistricting, though. They tried.
right, but David Ryu got one the old-fashioned way.
But if
Yeah, but he doesn't represent Koreatown.
No, but
Your
part of-
point is that to be a stakeholder, you must be a registered voter within the boundary.
No.
Well, that's what this says.
Yeah, it does say that.
No, to be no, because you can be a stakeholder in Studio City.
This guy, the resident.
Oh, no, the resident. That's correct. That's right. You got it right. I'm sorry. Yes, the resident has to be a registered
These
voter.
guys can be like her.
That's
I'm
right.
also registered in Studio City because
But
I-
not technically in our
not
boundaries, right?
technically,
That's the
right.
point. So, but you are,
No,
you would
it's my
qualify.
daughter's address.
Okay, well
absolutely.
then, and let's face it, the only time that any of this is going to be important is if there is an election where where the results are maybe 5 votes,
You
6
mean
votes,
close.
close. If it's 100 to 3, it doesn't even matter.
I see.
mean,
Your point is that it. Who cares if they're technically a stakeholder, since the technical
Or even if
definition
they're totally
that's
illegal.
I sort of agree with that because we're trying to get people to opt in, and voting is pulling 4 names on this side and 2 names on that side, and if one person is able to get a lot of people to do that
Yeah.
in Studio City, I say that's you could say, well, wait, be careful. You gotta, let's say you have a nefarious operator who wants to make inroads in Studio City. So they literally do that. They sign up and say, I'm a realtor, I sold a house here. Good, he's in, stakeholder. Stakeholder runs, and then stakeholder tells through social media, a string of realtors to pop by and say, I sold a house here, vote, 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 vote. And through the course of the 2 hours, they amass 200 votes, more than any. But they also click Eric Previn on the resident side. I do see a problem with this. These are voters. They like to do what they like to do. No, I do see that this could be co-opted. But, so could you try getting those people to do that.
I was going to say,
Then,
maybe we can get them to some of the other functions too.
folks, I hate
Yes, sir.
to, I mean, I hate to sound, well, but I've done this in cities all over the country, in both coasts. If you have a basic system, the only time that there's a controversy is a narrow victory, which here we don't ever seem to have, or if there is some credible reason to believe that some fraud or wrongdoing was committed, and then the council president or you or the bylaws or you would go to the proper authority, would make whatever it
Sometimes
is,
Robert's Rules of Order.
and they
has
would go through a
grievance-
process. And so I believe in process, and it wouldn't be, it's not like the end of the republic. These things happen.
True.
But the chances of them happening here are
Right.
almost zero.
And plus, the upside is great. The upside is great. The downside is possible.
Exactly.
I still think that it's worth doing in the period of time that this moves forward, if we can move it forward. I think it's important to focus on what Barry and others were talking about, which is when you show up, what does it look like? What do they say to you? And do you just say anything? Or is affirmation mean you just show ID and you're good? Even if your ID says I'm from Alaska, you just have to show who you are.
I think that's, I
mean-
would agree with that.
Do you have to do that when you go to vote? You
No,
do.
you
Yes,
show
you
no-
do. You
nothing.
can't. You walk in and you say, "I'm Eric Previn," and they say, "How do I know?" And you give them your driver's license.
No, you
No.
don't.
They don't say that.
Nothing.
They do?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well,
It's illegal.
I would say
Nothing.
that you, if you sign, that there should be a provision on
That you're telling
the,
the truth about who you are.
yes,
Yeah.
that it's under the
Declaration.
penalties of perjury, and that's all you need.
I think so.
And let them take their
Yeah.
chance.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Cole.
Yeah,
Perjury,
yeah.
since we have that little issue.
Speak up, I can't hear you.
Perjury, since
Yeah.
we had that.
Yeah.
that-
Oh, right. We did have
In the
that.
last election that came up, there were witness statements that,
Yeah.
that had the signature of one person on another person's witness statement, which is not the election.
I remember.
challenge
Okay.
process.
And how?
So is it under will be or may be referred to the city attorney's office?
I would say
Will be.
shall be,
Shall be.
yeah.
Well, perjury
Shall.
is perjury.
shall.
There's
Is
I
what
don't know how the language
The,
read
la-
last
the
time
lawyer,
because it was
the
ignored
legal
last time.
lawyer word for must be is shall.
It's under penalty of law.
But the risk you take is that you then need to, if you're gonna make it a shall, just talking from Robert's Rules of
Yeah.
Orders here. If you're gonna make it a shall, that means that every time that you are now taking on the responsibility to make sure that every single person is not perjured.
No. This is only if there is a question raised as to a particular voter.
Then it's a may.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
it's meant.
Believe me.
You can always refer it. It doesn't mean anything's going to be done, but you can say
What it would say
shall
would be,
refer
if there
it.
is a question about a particular voter's
It's a challenge of a voter's
propriety,
identity.
that shall be referred
Okay,
to
that's fine.
the person.
Yeah.
Do
That's what
any
I
of you do absentee ballot, vote by absentee
No,
ballot?
no.
Okay, I do. I
I'm
do.
not for
Okay,
neighborhood
because
council.
you have to sign a disclosure, a truth, that you are not perjuring when you
I know.
sign.
Well, you have
sign
to
it.
do
To
that when you
register, you
fill
do
out
too.
your registration card to vote and to begin
Right,
with.
right.
One. If somebody
So
wants
that
to
really
know-
covers you for life.
Yeah, and there must be thousands of.
I would
Yeah.
love. I would love to attach a document to this little packet that's very clean. Just the new structure and a little thing that's the voting affirmation sheet, so that people will have an idea exactly what they have to And do you have to fill out a piece of paper when you show up to vote?
No,
you
nothing.
just
This is
sign.
really
You
cool.
sign, you
It's
say,
loosey-goosey.
my
But
name
you
is
check
Marcia
off the
Newman.
ballots you want.
Right.
That's it.
And so then you have the ballot, and on the left you have the residents, and you can check 4, and on the right you have the candidates. And remember, it won't be just 10 you have to pick 4 of. It could be 20
Right.
from which you have to pick 4.
Right.
And then you could have 10 from which you have to pick 2. So that's good. And
yeah.
we'll be lucky if we get those.
So
ballots.
And then at the bottom, you could just have a thing, one line that says, I hereby affirm and declare pursuant to the penalties of perjury and
Yeah.
the laws of the state of California.
Right.
That
statement of
I
fact.
am a either resident, stakeholder, or youth.
Yeah, and you just check the box.
And sign it and date it, and boom, that's
Wait,
it.
can a youth vote?
Well, whatever.
For
Let's
you.
get to youth in a minute, but what is that document that you just described? Because I thought we just agreed you don't do a document.
No, you.
It's a
At the bottom of
statement.
the
It's
ballot.
just a statement.
Oh, at the bottom
It's
of the
just
ballot.
a-
Oh,
okay.
good
on
idea.
the, you
Statement.
put
That is
that
a
on
good
the
idea.
on the ballot.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay,
And you
so
don't
I'm
have to
voting
sign it,
for
though, but-
I'm
right.
voting for all these guys, and then down at the bottom
sign your name.
is that language.
Right, but
Yeah.
And you
isn't that
sign
gonna
it,
be-
you date it.
Okay.
So
that
I
way
say-
you have a piece.
I
of
love that if that's
evidence
kosher. Yeah.
that if the guy isn't
Right,
what he
people don't-
says he
people
is.
don't lie to vote in any regard. I wouldn't
know,
lie
and,
to do
and
anything, let alone
it may
vote.
also make people. It may cause people to think about doing something illegal if they know that that they could really
Yeah.
pay a fine or end up in the clink.
So
Well, let me just, what was the?
we
what
have
was-
got to move on,
Yes.
or we're not going to get
Right.
through the
Right. That's
agenda.
right.
Excuse
we
me
have
one
the same-
second,
yeah,
though.
okay.
When was the last election?
I don't remember. It's 2.5
Two and a
years
half
ago.
years ago.
Okay, how often are elections?
It's coming up in
It's
middle of May.
usually every 2 years, but it was 3 this time.
Do you have numbers on the turnout for the last
It's
election?
about 200-300 people is the high. Maybe it got
Total?
higher years ago.
There's been a high
Yeah.
of 800, though.
There you go. Yeah, back
When
in
was
That
those
was the
days.
first year that's when I ran.
That was when the valley was on
RFA, right?
fire, trying to seed from the city, and people were very.
I'm not
active.
sure.
Or was that
but-
way further?
Yeah, it might have been before, but
Were there any close ones that last time?
Ours was close, but no, not that I know of. Do you know? I mean, they were mostly the incumbents would put out a thing and roll in a slightly different.
Well, they were blown
crowd.
out, right?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say blown out. There was a
But
competitive
it was
race.
more than 5 votes or 10 votes. Or, I mean,
in some cases.
Yeah.
it was.
The hotly contested races were 10, 12 seats apart. It was
Okay.
very close.
And who counts them? And who certifies?
It's a good question, but let's get back on the agenda. I'll be happy to talk about it, but I think he's pushing because he knows he's got a 7:30, and we agree.
And, and I was just going to say, I
want
think
to talk
you
about that
should
with you,
send
Marcia,
it
just
to the
so-
city clerk for feedback.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't have to send it to the bylaws committee because you are the bylaws committee and you can agendize it when you
Right.
are getting ready.
Right. So, but because I
Can I
want to
ask
be,
one more question?
hold on. Yep.
Very quick.
Sure.
I was being opened up when this was happening. Did anybody start a process over those close elections 2.5 years ago?
There was a grievance, and it was resolved.
One.
Several, and I don't remember.
Two.
Peter knows. Yeah, several grievances were
That's
lodged.
it's nothing.
Yeah. No. Well,
was
first of all,
resolved.
that was extremely unusual and atypical. Let's agree.
Okay.
No, but I
But
do
that's-
think
that-
it's a great area, and we've
that's
had
my
lots
point.
of items that come up on that. Let's for now though, we have before us a possible motion to send to the city clerk for feedback, as well as the Studio City Neighborhood Bylaw Committee for consideration. And I would like to do both for the following reason, because I do want the clerk's feedback, but as you point out, the clerk is not necessarily cooperating at the moment because the clerk has a moratorium.
But
so
it'd be
yeah, no, I
interesting
will.
to
I'm going
see.
to. Do not get me wrong. We're going to do that. We're going to send it to them, and we're going to send it to bylaws. And when it lands on the bylaws desk, which is, it's going to be a meeting, and I would like to invite anybody on this committee who would like to serve on the upcoming bylaws committee. But I would also like to spruce it up. I will think about it over the next couple of days, and put something together. And we should just hone it down to even better. I'd like to add a sheet that shows that we just described. If you want to volunteer to generate a voting sheet that you sign with the language at the bottom,
I will do that.
and then send that to me as a PDF, and then we'll just put it into bylaws, send it to the clerk. Do I have any opposition?
And I'm so happy you were asked to be the chairman of the Bylaws Committee.
Thank you,
That
sir.
committee has been
Public comment from Nancy,
Address
yes.
the youth vote. 'Cause I think
Oh,
that's
I
an issue.
apologize. Thank you for bringing that up. We
How old do you have to be to?
older than to
I
know
think
better.
it's 16 to 18.
Yeah.
15 to 17.
15 to 17. Now, there are a couple issues, but we're in a rush. So, but it is a good point that it's going to be included. It is a non-voting member elected during 15 to 17. If they become 18 during their period, can they vote? Is a question that we could ask ourselves and refer to bylaws for further
I thought the
discussion.
answer was yes, once they're 18,
Barry
even if they're a
thinks
youth
yes.
I thought we
member.
did that.
And Carter
Yeah.
thinks yes. And Peter thinks outrageous.
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
I don't know.
Isn't it in the bylaws?
Any ideas? Yeah. I mean, to me, it's.
Yeah, I think it is.
To me, it's it makes no sense because then but on the other hand, I'm not opposed to it. But if you're a non-voting youth, for all the reasons that you make when you're 17, how do any of them change when you're 18? So
it's like-
but I like that. And also I think that we don't necessarily deal with.
But you can legally vote at 18.
Right. So that would be the thing. But then, are you termed out when you turn 19? I would go for it.
Of
then.
that seat you are.
Okay, fine. Then I'm fine with
No,
it.
you're out when the next election is.
Oh, so you could
Yeah.
possibly be a swing vote.
So as long as the guy or woman, girl, if I can say that, as long as the girl is under 18, she's okay. And
To
she-
run for the seat.
To run and serve, but she can't vote on
Until she's 18.
Until she's
no.
18.
motions.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Nancy, did I not bring up the point that you were thinking about?
I don't know that this is the place as much as bylaws is the place, but I would hate to see this go as is without it going through a bylaws committee to discuss that more thoroughly where it's appropriate.
I agree.
I
And-
think it's in our
It
bylaws.
is. We went through it a few
Correct,
years ago.
but I think that the
But
point
it's-
is that you're changing the bylaws. You're
we
looking
can
for.
always change.
Oh, right. And if we're going to make a little amendment, you like it. You think
Well,
it is that
I'm
way
not
in the
sure
bylaws.
which way it's in there. I just know
Right.
it's addressed.
So I think it's a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. We will check that, and we will
Remy.
make it line up
Remy.
so that it's the way we want it, if it's not the way we want it.
Remy Kessler
Right.
did a long discourse on it in a meeting. and
Excellent.
3 hours later, we voted on it. No,
Okay.
I love Remy.
So, thank you.
I do.
Oh, he's a terrific guy. So, there's the motion to send the proposal to the clerk and also to the bylaws committee for
Second.
consideration. Seconded by Mr. Carter. Any opposition? It's unanimous. Okay. So, we can move on. Item number 7. So, this was our brilliant idea to talk to our council members who raise a lot of money about the process of raising a lot of money. And so far, Paul Koretz has agreed to come to Studio City. It's exciting. The others have not agreed. Mike Bonin and David Ryu yet. They've not yet agreed. I would describe it as a negotiation because I don't see any way that they can't, because they've made citywide motions about what great guys they are and about how interested they are in this subject. So when a group comes together and says, we're very interested, let's discuss it, it's very hard for me to understand how they can be unavailable. The gambit that we're playing, for those who like to play, is I've said essentially, first I got a date for Koretz, and then I said, can you join us at that date or the next date? And they said, oh, unfortunately, the council member is unavailable. I said, great. When is he available? Which is very hard, too, because we are widely available because we can always get a room somewhere. So that's where we are. I would say it's going okay as opposed to great, because it would be going great if they had already complied to our demands, but I think that they will. And if they won't, we may get other council members. I've already started the process because I want to have a couple so
Did
that
you
we
try
can bat around.
Krikorian?
No, I didn't, but I could,
Yeah,
and I
you
will.
should.
He might come.
Absolutely.
He might come. He, of course, it's very. This is such a touchy
Although now
subject
that he's
now.
announced he's running again,
Did
it's
you do that?
maybe
Damn it, I was going to do that
conflict
tomorrow.
of
Guys,
interest.
There's a good area. Let me just say that, because there is nothing that they do not want to talk about more than this.
I read your
Which
stuff on this.
I find
mean,
it's good stuff. It's
giving these guys money to run is like,
it's a shanda. It's a
Yeah,
shanda
it
on
is.
Hanukkah.
whatever
I
that
know,
is.
I know.
I'm a Presbyterian.
I know.
So do you,
I
use the
agree
term
with whatever it is.
do you want to have
That's
a
a blight.
motion to
Huh?
support
blight.
this
Thank
money?
you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry. A motion to move this forward, because I think we'd like to have the option of the library, which is better than here, even there. But we could do it here if we're in a pinch, because I can't. The library is flexible, but not that flexible. So But this is it. This approves it to go to the board. The board will say okay, hopefully, or they can question
It doesn't have to go to budget.
We'll have a budget meeting when we have the bylaw. I'm going to have a bylaw budget combo platter.
You want another Sean to throw in there?
Pick 2 from ballot A, 2 from ballot B.
Do you want to do legislative and judicial branches? Or not? Or wait? Or
I
because
prefer
judicial.
What happened
elections,
to executive? What happened to executive branch? I like executive branch. Forget that. Damn.
In judicial elections in the state of California, unbelievably, there is no limit to how much a person may contribute to a candidate.
So you can
I
say,
could
Judge,
give you $15 million.
I haven't broken the law yet, but there's a small
No,
chance.
but you have to report it.
Here's the 400,000. Now, I
Nope.
realize it seems like a lot for a local
You
election.
report it,
Oh, okay.
but there's no limit.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
Okay.
Wait.
Yep. No, it is very interesting.
Yeah,
so,
it's unbelievable.
Just I want to get it on the record that
And what would you call this forum?
yeah, I think good question. This will be the open forum. We could call it campaign finance. That sounds kind of, or we could call it something
Cleaning
more
the
like
swamp.
city elections. You know, the next city elections. Open forum on the next boring thing.
Or just call it "Show Me the Money."
Right, show me the money.
Yeah.
Show me the money
about-
at
how
the
about-
Studio City Library.
How about-
I love it.
How about follow the money?
Your candidates. Follow.
By the way,
Tell you
I'm,
follow the money.
Follow
your
the money.
candidates.
Follow the money.
Or not your candidates, your elected
okay?
officials.
Yeah.
I actually like what you guys are doing, which is zetzing it up a little bit.
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
zest
problem
this
is
up.
that if you invite the council members to the roast of themselves, you
You
know,
don't have to tell them what it's called.
right? Let's get them to commit first, take their picture,
And then, yeah.
You could
And then-
explain, say to them,
And then-
we want
and
the
then-
Show me
voters,
the money.
right?
we want to
then-
have informed, really smart voters,
That's-
understanding the process, and work depending upon you to help educate them.
Correct. You would have been very proud. Today I stood in the CD11 Council District Office with the Chief of Staff, Chad Mulmore, who's the Chief of Staff for Bonin, and I was like in puppy mode, which I don't know if you've seen puppy mode, but I was like, Chad, you've got to be kidding me. He is so smart. This guy, nobody understands campaign finance like Mike. We can't go forward without him. Please. And he was like, the last thing they want to talk about is all the money they're stealing from.
Can I do
Yes.
a ride around with you someday?
Yes, you can.
And write an article?
That's going to cost you. But let's move forward.
All right.
Okay, so the GAC, Government Affairs Committee,
Los
recommends
Angeles.
supporting and promoting this open forum. Follow them. Show me the money. We'll give it a name.
Yeah.
And it's the cost. I want to
$400.
review the cost. $216 is the out the door to the library. They just say, give us $216. It's to get the guy to stand there. Then we have additional costs up to $400 to round number, which include
phone.
copies. Last time I didn't spend. I just turned in the actuals. So we were under budget last time. And for refreshments, we can discuss that more at budget. So, any opposition? It's unanimous.
Second. Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
Do it.
Okay. Now, the third item is item number 8, which is a tired old item about water conservation, because it's so important, but I didn't realize that this has been around for a while. So I thought it was new. I thought it sounded great. And I have reached out, and I've got a couple of youngsters looking at possibly participating through their teachers. The way it works is that if you're interested, you get your teacher to say, I'm interested, and then they ship them a couple buckets, and they put the buckets out when it rains to show that the place leaks. So this is why it's not that popular. The schools are like, don't bring
Yeah,
the leaky
right.
buckets. But
You still want a motion?
I don't even know if we need one, to be honest, because we're joint. Oh, let's do it, because then they'll. I said that it would be nice to support it, so let's do it.
And I have one correction.
Okay.
Omit Colfax and add Rio Vista, because Rio Vista's in Studio
Good
City
idea.
and Colfax isn't.
I was hoping that you would make that note. Thank you.
Is that right?
Colfax is
Just over the border?
valid.
Colfax is,
Good.
way
Right.
north of the 101.
Right.
Oh, I think of the street.
But
Yeah.
again, I mean, if somebody,
I see what you
in this particular instance, we could add Rio Vista, because it's like, but you're
But
right.
I wouldn't
Let's
do
focus- no.
Colfax because Valley Village
I made the
considers that theirs.
Oh, good point. Oh, well, we don't want a
Yeah,
turf
yeah.
war
it's a
over
good
the.
school.
We could have a bucket
that's highly
brigade turf
recommended.
war. We could do a
Yeah.
little musical about the buckets with the buckets. Okay, so the Studio City joins the Los Angeles Department of Water Power and the LAUSD and possibly other schools. Because I was thinking, private school kids should also conserve water. They more than the public school kids, because they don't know what they can be very
Elitist.
well out of touch. So long story. No, I mean not all of them, but it's promoting water conservancy cuts across all Browns. Elitist, right? So anyway, we're going to support it, and we're going to get a motion from the board so that we can show ours.
Add the projects because
Yeah.
the kids at Harvard Westlake need projects to put in their college apps.
Oh, they will love it.
Oh,
We could
yeah.
ship some budgets over there.
Right.
Buckets over there. It's a great idea.
It's gone.
I'm going to add. I did, and possibly other schools.
Yeah.
I'm going to, this will be my opportunity to torture the LADWP and say, can I give them out at private schools too? And they'll say, oh, we didn't want this to succeed. No, they'll say, yes,
Those
of course.
are all our donors.
Okay, moving forward. Item number 9.
Mm-hmm.
That was unanimous, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and I printed out letters
Oh, good.
from the Campo and
Oh, great. Item number 9 is the Gov't Affairs Committee requests that the board, that's our board, consider the placement of a public toilet with an attendant at the Universal Red Line station, that the council district join forces in this endeavor. What do Studio City stakeholders think about that? Oh, and this is a letter in support from the group at Campo de Cuenca, who are apparently the erstwhile mobile pit stop for many.
This is not a motion. Oh,
This
it
is a motion.
It is
No, but and there's an update on the motion
Got
as
it.
well. So the motion is to get Krikorian to make good on his comment at the board meeting where I brought it up. I said, just in 10 seconds or less, because we know what it is. It's a portable kind of advertising toilet that comes with a person who keeps it clean, so there's a vibe of decency. And so people who are,
but it's not showers.
not showers.
Yeah.
It's a toilet. It's a toilet, but it's a nice toilet. And it's, people are curious about it at first when you see one because we don't have those in LA.
See, I think we should ask for a permanent building. Forget this mobile crap.
Well, let's
there
start.
needs to be a permanent building at that
Does the
metro
does the
stop.
guy hand out
Expensive.
the
And then Metro should
towels
pay for it,
and
not
brush
the
Yeah.
them off
It's metro
after?
expense.
No, he doesn't give you a mint. It's not that kind of a guy.
Well, Krikorian's on the
No, I know you
metro
are,
board.
but I'm picking up with your joke.
But
But guys, let me address both of those points.
Uh-huh.
But first of all, just to let you know that this program, Mobile Pit Stop, was sold to me by a video made in San Francisco about their idea to do places around town where people could use a clean bathroom because it's kind of a human right. And the way we used them in LA was we kind of rammed them toward places where there's a lot of people on the street, and they became support, just like toilets for the homeless, encampments. But that was not how they were conceived. They were conceived for not just, but certainly not to exclude transients or people who are living on the street. But so the reason why I like it at Red Line, for obvious reasons, is because people are walking and coming and going, and there's also tourists. And this confirms, Barry just circulated a letter that the one place where you can sort of get in to go to the bathroom, you have to pretend you're going to a museum, which I thought was very funny.
But it's only
stats of
open
the-
2
it's like-
days a month.
I know, but a museum, when you look at a museum's attendance and people fill out the brochure for why they went to the museum, they went to the museum. It was a very high number to go to the bathroom. Yes.
I would move that we pass this, because as the policeman in Godfather 1 says before he gets shot by Michael, when you gotta go, you gotta go. So I move that we do this.
However, Barry and I had an aside mini conversation just now, in which we both had a micro talk about Metro taking responsibility for this, putting a permanent facility.
That's a great point. But I'll say this. Getting them to build a building is going to be harder than getting them to roll in one of these products
Well, then
for
let-
now.
then
Let's
let them-
try. We could do both. We could do
Okay,
both.
but let the onus be on them.
Well, look, it all comes down to funding, and I will announce that
course.
today, as I was
All
leaving
this
the
motion
building.
does is request it.
Right, but as I was leaving the building for the scholars, there was a motion pinned up as I was leaving from Mitch O'Farrell. That's Hollywood District 13, the Hollywood people, and he was requesting, because there's something called HEAP, Homeless Emergency Money, and there's $11.5 million ready to be pushed out the conveyor belt. And he was proactively saying, we in CD13 would like a mobile pit stop program. And we would like $1.6 million.
He would?
His group. He wants, of that 11.5, he wants 1.6. You do the math. That must be what's left. In any case, he wants to do a mobile pit stop program in Hollywood. And I did the math quickly
10%
on.
of it?
He wants to do it from the period of time that he's writing until middle of June 21. I did the math. It would be like 880 days if he started, in a few months. So I did the math and I was like, wait a minute. These guys make $16 an hour. So if you give 100 hours, it's a week, long week, but maybe you got a guy taking them and coming and going. That's $1,600. What about the other 11,000 for the? And then I thought, it must be more than one. His program,
24/7.
he's got one on this and one over there and one over there. So if it was 3, you can kind of get closer to what might make sense. And here's the thing. I know, I threw it up there as a good idea, and now I'm attacking it as too expensive. But I'm not. I just want to be smart, and I don't see any reason to overpay for these things. But I do think that there's a lot of funding sources for this, because there's Universal, who has community benefit money that they pay to us regularly. There's also Metro, that you both mentioned, which is a great source of funding. And there's what O'Farrell's got, these heat money. And I have the item. I think I brought it today because I thought it was so
Is this attendance
interesting.
going to be there 24/7?
No, because that's excessive. But I think it would be good to have them there 12 hours, the right 12 hours.
And then what happens? Then the mobile pit stop will be locked?
Yeah, it gets, they're quite attractive. If you didn't click on the video and you can see they're quite.
But, so it's not going to have 24/7 accessibility for people?
Right. And now, there's a product for everybody. If you want to go 24/7, we can step into a 4-door.
Well, it could
Because
be
that does
16 hours too, and just be closed.
In Venice,
8.
there is a precedent. They do it in places where there's a high number of people out on the street in the middle of the night. But I don't think that's our story. I think our story is it at Universal, a high number.
Lowe's is probably the restaurants and bars. I mean,
And
the
they
latest
stop.
they're going to go is 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, but you guys have seen, there's homeless everywhere.
Well, no, I know, but not. But here's my thought: the Red Line is delivering people.
I understand, yeah.
and including homeless people. But
it is closed
But
for
I would
like
love for a
4
homeless
hours.
person to be able to relieve themselves appropriately. Only because if they can't, you have a situation where they're on the red line.
The question I would ask,
Yeah.
though, is it attracting? Is it going to attract homeless people to the
It's not. It's not that nice. Just to be clear.
it's-
I mean, if I told you there's a public toilet in Van Nuys, you want to go?
Yeah, it's
You know,
not
you might
like
say
the,
no.
There's a museum.
It's not like the bathroom in the basement of Trump Tower. If you've ever been there, I mean that's
So
beautiful.
anyway,
The only good
Yeah.
thing I can say about him, he builds nice bathrooms.
so
I would move. You
Well,
got
yeah.
a,
No, go
you've
ahead.
got a schedule. I would move. Call the question on number 9.
and just correct the name of the station to say Universal / Studio
Yes.
City, because we worked
You
long and hard to
you
get that name
Carried
changed.
that sign around. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Okay.
Is there going to be a sink? in
Oh
these?
yeah, I mean, we should explore. First, let me tell you what I've done so far. I've contacted Kevin James, who said, "Great, here's my guy," and gave me his phone number. I contacted our council district office, so I had to do a little judo maneuver. But once I did the judo maneuver, they provided. Jessica's working on it.
Oh,
Let us
from,
know.
from
Yeah.
Cricorium.
So that's good. And then, in addition, we've got this Mitch O'Farrell detail about the heat money. We should get some heat money.
Huge
I mean,
amount of money.
what a great idea. Because I think it's a way that we have a community that is torn between kumbayas and pitchforks, and yet everybody agrees there's a good place to go to the bathroom.
I think
over
we
there.
shouldn't. I think we would have to do an experimental time
Yeah.
to see what the social
Trial.
impact is.
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if other peoples have been using it, what is?
What's happening? What's going
Ask
on?
them.
To see if
Yeah.
you find bodies
Yeah.
in there. Or
Yeah.
whatever, you
I
know?
I mean, all the great cities of the world that have rail lines, subways, all have bathrooms.
bathrooms.
Yeah.
It's just absurd that we don't.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Agreed. Absolutely.
There's no bathroom if you go down the 300 steps
No.
into the
No.
ground.
It's unbelievable.
It
It's
is unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Wasn't that against
Even
the
in
law?
It's
New York,
inhumane.
you
It's
could-
inhumane.
could-
It's true.
Yeah.
There's
And these people are coming from all over the world. They want to go to Universal. Why they want to go to Universal? Because it's so much fun and a great opportunity.
But you know,
look,
I can't find any elevators in the subways in New York.
Okay, so
They're all- they're
thinking
all-
about
in
Barry.
Brooklyn there is.
Thinking about Barry, I just want to say he called the question. The Gov't Affairs Committee recommends that the board pass a motion to formally request a mobile pit stop and to get the name of the metro station right for once. It's Universal / Studio City Red Line. Thank you. Good work. Now, and we're gonna and
Okay.
I'll, next.
Okay.
Hate crime. So yeah, I brought this one up because people contacted me, I believe, or contacted us, and without going into the details because I don't know much about them, there was apparently an attack on some Jewish people in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
There was a wig that was removed
Yep.
and thrown. A very
In Valley
aggressive
Village.
in Valley Village. So not technically Studio City, but people. I think Schiller and other people on our board brought it up. So I wanted to raise it up. I mean, what do people think?
I think that there is a growing amount of anti-Semitism in this country, and it is frightening to me. And if there's something that we can do that will just bring up the topic of tolerance and history and all the things that you heard today in that funeral, I would certainly support this.
Hate crimes up 17% from 16 to 17, according to the FBI. Though the numbers are really wobbly because there's no national requirement to report any of this.
Right.
Were any of you at the last public safety, the council meeting, in which
That's part of one.
Yeah.
and the activism from the local Jewish community there was a good turnout.
Very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
They hijacked our meeting, so they
Yeah.
were well
they were organized.
organized.
Yeah.
Hijacked is.
I
is the
said to
official
one of
term.
them, though, why aren't you doing this at the Valley Village Neighborhood Council meeting, since that's where this happened and you all came here from there,
What'd
you
they
know?
say?
I think that the answer to that question is because Krikorian was going to be in attendance.
Right,
So they
yeah.
saw a good opportunity to address him. But I think it's terrible, and I don't like it, frankly, that it happens in our community. If it's exactly what it seems like it is.
Even if it's up 1% or whatever, I mean, it doesn't matter. That's how it starts.
So what can we do? Is there anything we can do? I mean, it's very big. It's everybody talks about it. I don't know. I mean, I put a few things down. Support for training at our. We did that. We paid for a guy to go give him a speech at
Did we
Carpenter.
ever hear back about?
We didn't get the feedback, but we could follow up and do that, or try to do it again. Do something similar. Tolerance speaker at a board meeting. Maybe we could have someone come. That's not my
and
preference.
C is good.
C is an open forum on tolerance. That's a loaded thing, but we could certainly do that if
Well.
people were interested. And then D is, just point people to what the existing resources and share that, because there's a very good museum and you can learn everything you want to know. You don't have to, but I would support any of these things because I'm struggling with something to do. What I would really like to do, if I could do, is to, I don't know, make it very clear that it's unacceptable, but not like threatening,
Right.
but like make it so
Well-
that you never want to do that in our neighborhood.
Okay, so I feel that
Yeah.
this kind of
Maybe a resolution.
intersects with my other committee involvement, which is
Yeah.
Public Safety Committee. And this would be a really great topic for the police
Yeah, but
or
Marcia,
the FBI to come and make
Maybe.
talk about how they handle
Yeah.
hate crimes in our area,
that's a good idea. Law enforcement presentation.
law enforcement, and
Maybe-
FBI.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I didn't want to lose what Nancy said before it slips away.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was a good idea. We could write a resolution, which is for
That we are-
the
we do not
technical term
tolerate.
is
We
we're
do
doing
not
nothing. But by writing a resolution, you're making a statement.
Well, that's
you're
okay.
saying. So we could one of us could draft it, or we could work on it together at some. We don't have to do it urgently, but we could come up with a statement, and then publish it as a resolution. Get the board to agree, and then everybody feels good about it, and it goes out into the community, and they feel that we are
Yeah.
not okay with this. And so I like that idea, frankly.
And I like that idea as well, and I also think that it intersects with public safety.
Absolutely.
Which has to do that we, the residents of Studio City and stakeholders, we are a law-abiding, tolerant community that embraces diversity.
Mm-hmm.
But we are law-abiding. We respect each other, and we respect the role of the police and all peaceful participants.
Yeah. So here's a proposal. Yeah, Rick.
as I said earlier, like high school kids need stuff to put on their apps. If you wanted, we could recruit like tolerance ambassadors.
That's a
High
good
school
idea.
kids, they go around to schools, you know, maybe there's some money in the budget to bring snacks, they talk to elementary, you know, middle.
Oh, high school kids go down to lower school.
Or they
kids.
talk to, you know, and also they kind of keep an eye peeled, though. If anybody puts a swastika any place, it's all over the local news. It's not
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know.
I mean, that's the thing is, thank God we're not in that environment where it's happening right now. Although, you know, you look around and you just see terrible things. But
There were swastikas last year on Radford.
yeah, yeah. Well, I like all these ideas. Why don't we? Let's see. Why don't we do a resolution and take the time to write one? Does anyone want to draft it? I mean, I'll be honest with you. If we're going to have someone from law enforcement, I think that's separate because if they could come and speak about it, that's so that would be great. Maybe that could come through Craig and through public safety.
Mm-hmm.
But for this group, maybe we could make a little statement. We could look around and see other ones and go from there. Does that seem like a strategy? And maybe in terms of generating a program for high school kids, how could we like get someone to do that? Maybe Claire. We could assign Claire our youth ambassador because I know she's sympathetic to being anti-hate. We all are. I mean, I can say that with confidence. Except for no, just kidding. So I would
you
recommend we do that. Let's engage our youth member to help us with that. I'll ask her. That would be one way. Do you know Claire? I'll introduce you to her
Would
as well.
you get
since it
the
was your
council office involved at all, or?
idea. That's a great idea because those guys.
Well, I was
are-
thinking as far as like an open forum, they could even hold it and do like Studio City, Valley Village combined.
Oh, I have an idea.
This is for Krikorian's district.
Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The proposal to do it at the school level seems like it makes the most
Is
sense.
that our
to
job,
me.
though? Is this really a curriculum?
Well, maybe we can
issue?
offer, but we could offer funding
for
for them
schools.
to do it
Yeah.
in
It's
a
a
school.
curriculum thing.
Yeah, I mean
That it should be.
they do work it into schools. But again, yeah.
But funding, how about take the council office and have the council office talk to the high school students?
Right, he could fund that. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's so much
Well,
our job.
I have an idea because we have a lot of things, a lot of good ideas on this. Let's take it to the board without just saying that we want to maybe we should put a do we need I don't want to do a subcommittee because that's just more meeting.
Yeah, it is.
What does anyone have a
You could
recommendation? I mean, we've got so many good things.
Say
I
it
don't
in
wanna,
your report.
yeah, we could
to
give
the
a
board.
report. Right, that's
That
it.
we're
Maybe that's what we'll
looking
do.
into it and
Maybe
figuring it out.
we'll make a report on it, and
if
that will include a resolution, reaching out to schools.
And has there been confirmation that we're having a board meeting in December?
Yeah,
We are,
I haven't. I mean, there's no such thing as confirmation, but yes,
because sometimes we haven't.
correct. But I know we all want to because it's middle of the week on the 19th. I mean, there's a limit to how much fuzzy antler activities you can be engaged in.
Boy, that's
Cinnamon cocoa, sugar cookies.
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry. So does that seem like a good idea? A report saying, look, let's, or is that just, are we just kicking it down the road and we have 2 minutes before, because we're virtually at the end, there's just a couple more items and they're just informational mostly. Peter?
Just the engaging the youth member.
Yeah.
So if they want to vote, I think I'd like
Yeah.
to see them get involved and actually champion some cause.
So you like the idea of engaging
Yeah.
her? Okay, cool. Well, I like that too. I think I'm always struggling for something to say other than hello and hello. So that's a good one. Then we'll do that, and then so there we go. That seems appropriate. Moving on. So we're in agreement on that. It's not actually a motion. It's going to be a report back with ideas. Okay. So the next item is the street vending ordinance. So after years of debate, LA has legalized street vending. Now, I don't know if anybody took the time to poke through the ordinance. It's basically it limits the amount of vendors that can be on a street, and for parks it makes it so that they're going to have like a little district where they can street vend. They're still frankly finessing the details of how that's going to work. Mitch O'Farrell is the councilman who is sort of the parks guy, And so he's working on that. Some parks have a much bigger issue than we would ever have, like MacArthur Park, where you have an enormous amount of vending activity. I think that in Studio City, people reasonably would be afraid of a lot of vendors on the sidewalk on Ventura Boulevard because that would hurt their business, but we don't have that
And parking.
at the moment. So I don't know, Barry, what do you
And
think?
even once licensed, it's only every so many feet.
Right, they do an acre mile or
But
something.
my question was, do we know if it's just for the licensing that will be done later after January 1st?
Yes.
Can you be licensed to street vend on a residential street?
So that's a good question. I don't think so. It's a
I hope
permit.
not.
It's a permit, by the way, not a license.
permit.
It's a permit.
Yeah.
They decided to go to a permit system, which I like, because then you buy your permit and then you can.
Do they
don't
get health grades?
Hassle you.
They
Yeah,
get grade
they
11?
And
do-
it's
they
for
do.
a
There are
specific
certain things you have
spot.
to do. You have to get inspection, health inspection for food.
Are
Yes.
we talking about like
Hot
one
dog cart?
after another?
It's
Yes.
not going to
Or are
happen
we
here, but
talking
it could
about
happen.
The
And
Well, there's
But they
space.
limit-
Rolla hot dog guy
uh,
at 5th and 55th
yeah,
Street.
we're talking about all of them together under one big clumsy ordinance that nobody knows.
So the
including
family
me.
that just has a table and comes and sells fruit or whatever,
Your worst
they're
nightmare.
included with the more fancy hot dog cart.
It's going to look like the main street of a couple.
But there are rules. Look, you have pockets of street vending activity that are off the charts in this city. Venice Beach, Hollywood Boulevard, MacArthur Park, near the
And
Griffith
it should
Park.
make them look
And
better.
they're trying to limit the amounts of permits. It's going to go how it's going to go. I can't say it's going to be a great success. I don't know, but it's better than what we have, which is nothing. And for a long time, people have been, they say, in the shadows. So there was a great feeling of exhausted relief that finally they have something, because we're late to the party among cities in America. Other cities have figured it out. And by the way, there's a lot of hostility in this space. You've seen the battles of the funny superheroes, and this is an area. People are like, get out of my area. The one guy who made a speech was funny. He said that he was the Chamber of Commerce guy, and he said this man was cooking on the street, cooking and smoking a reefer at the same time, and blocking the handicap. I mean, he was like his strategy was to describe one monster, but it was not working very well because he sounded like a jerk. And then a guy came on who was very, a vendor who was saying, "Why are you arresting us?" It's a very contentious issue. I have one thing to say about it, but I'll open it up.
I
Anybody?
can say one thing is that I sit in temporary judge, and street vending comes up. The fine is $50 times 5 with the penalty assessment. They just pay it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what this is going to look like. I mean, this city is still struggling to be a world-class city.
Yeah.
So you're going to have, guys selling
The third world look.
pictures of Jesus, JFK, and Martin Luther King on Figueroa in front of all the big buildings with the law firms in it. I mean, I didn't know about this.
Let's be clear. Also, it's hard
No,
to make a
now
living
that
as
is
a
a way
street
to
vendor.
start.
It's hard to make a living as a street vendor.
The market's going to limit it. I mean, there's
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
Peter.
Okay, so you buy your permit, is there a whole new force of government employees now that goes out and checks out on everybody's permit, or?
There's no enforcement.
They do in New York
So
City.
what's the point?
No, but to their credit, the Department of Pernicious Citations is doing a decent job. That's the Administrative Citation Enforcement Program.
In New York,
But if you
if you're
add
on
these-
Canal Street and you're selling, every couple days, cops go by everybody that's out there and check to see if they have a license. Constantly.
The problem with this city is enforcement,
Yeah.
This city doesn't enforce much of anything.
because they don't put money towards infrastructure.
And if they did, they could
Enforcement.
collect a whole lot of money.
Well,
New York
they-
City has 4 times as many cops per capita as
Oh yeah. I've tried to New York shame the commissioner
Well,
here.
It's also a street city where people walk everywhere.
well,
How come you don't walk here?
listen, this is the way it is here, I mean,
Yeah. How are you? Good.
it's the weather that makes it great.
Usually.
All right, let's move forward. I don't think we have a motion on this one, but I will just give one bit of street vending factoid, which is street vending means selling stuff on the street. There's a festival in LA called Taste of Soul where Danny Bakewell, who's an impresario from Los Angeles, who's connected to all the politicians, rents the street from New York, from the city. He writes a check for $250, just like everybody else. They close down the boulevard, and then he sets up a business,
Right.
which is great because people come out and hundreds of thousands, and he does some advertising to banks and all these characters. But the part that enrages me is he also sends a bill to the government agencies, like the city of LA, who gave him the street to have the party. And I'm like, what? How much do we give them to set up the table and hand out the city of LA election guide? We give $85,000 for each year. I'm like, for the 1 day, 3 hour, 5 hour party? You crazy? We pay him? And then they said, we're not the only ones. The county also pays $100,000. What? And then when you do the math, the amount of money that is paid to this one street vendor, he's a street vendor, would blow your mind. And it's alongside all the private money. So, careful what you wish for with the street vending. Yep. Okay, so that said, it's a great event. I don't want to diminish the event. It's very nice and people come out. So the last one is just something to think about and watch the video if you get a chance. There's a plan underfoot in LA County to incarcerate people far away in Lancaster, women. And it's complicated, and I don't think we have time because we're getting to the end, but I wanted to get people tuned into this meeting because the professionals in the county talked about it. You had a public health person and a public works person to talk about this jail project up in Mira Loma, which is so far away and such a bad idea, in my view, because people who do county jail time are not really doing long amounts of time, as we've heard over and over again. So it's so far away, and it's such a odd environment to do it. And I think that when you listen to this audio recording of that public meeting, you can hear the authorities kind of giving, like they're losing their enthusiasm for it. They're thinking maybe this is a terrible idea. Maybe it's just going to create more recidivism. Maybe we shouldn't go to all the trouble to build the infrastructure to get people up there, and buses. All that is energy and gas and traffic, and so listen to it and see what you think. I think it's an interesting meeting because you hear them attack. It's a meeting in which they sort of attack the project. So I like that, and I think it's worth seeing what we think. So
And this would just be for women.
yeah, the plan is there's a big jail plan underfoot to revise Men's Central downtown, make it better and nicer and more friendly to people, if that's possible, because incarceration is not friendly. And then there's also, but I know it's important.
It's not friendly to
Right.
the people on the outside. It really isn't. I've got personal experience.
Right.
It,
What's not friendly?
with,
Yeah.
with Men's Central, if you want your person in there to have a bar of soap, you have to go to Men's Central with cash and put it in their account so that they can get a bar of soap.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff you need to find out. And if it's in Lancaster, if it's the same situation,
How would you ever do that? Right.
You would never be able to do
Right.
that.
Exactly.
And these people don't have.
This is a money
I think that
generating.
the idea behind it is that they got some land up there that maybe can use but it's not the right plan. So that's my personal view, but everybody can have their own view. That's why I give the link, and that concludes that. Now, are there any other comments before we wrap up this particular exciting meeting of the Government Affairs Committee? I think we're good. So with
I move
that,
we adjourn.
I move that we adjourn. Thank you. Seconded, and thank you all for coming.